I want to welcome everybody for the afternoon session. And our first speaker is Dr. Hanan Mudahir, who works for the Sudan Environmental Initiative for Sustainable Development. He has a BS in Oceanography and an MS in Strategic Studies. In Integrated Coastal Management from Alexandria University. And he has a PhD in Strategic and Security Studies from Al-Zaim Al-Jari University. He's worked as a consultant with a variety of academic groups and NGOs. And he's a member of the Board of Trustees for the African Civil Societies Network in Northern Sanitation. So I hope Professor or Dr. Mudahir is with us and he can start his talk.
Yeah, hello. Hi, everyone. This is Hanan Al-Amin from Sudan. Thanks for all of you and for the panelists and for the conference secretariat to give me this choice in presenting this presentation. For the title ad, it is a case study and story representing the UN Environment and the EU Commission in their project in area which is Western Sudan in Darfur. It's on Sudan Wadi Partners, Food Security and Disaster Resilience Project. Actually, this project, this map is shown the project area, and the project, as I mentioned, is located in Western Sudan and Al-Fashir, which is on this red color. The project launched by UNIT EU in 2013, extended up to 2017 in 2 phases. It is extended in 100 or 1,000 kilometers along from the administrative area north of Darfur with a budget of over 16.8 million euros. Actually, in this project, we have water spreading with the water canals and seawater reservoirs have been rehabilitated, and hafirs also have been constructed in the area. I may need to go back a little while because just to give an introduction that the area is severe from climate change patterns and with marginal, very fragile, that there is a higher temperature rising, and actually there is some erratic and no rain completely from time to time due to climatic change patterns. For that, maybe those donors have been, and with Practical Action Organization, which is a British one, are concerned very much in this project, and it's called Wadi Project. As I mentioned, it started in 2013 in targeting 6 days peace conference for 7 pastoralist groups and 44 farming village, having consensus building for more than 2 months to reach this consensus for this group. Actually, they are targeting to have like multidisciplinary approach and diversifying livelihood components in many areas, as I mentioned, to meet the safety for the people there and to have like much development scheme for their livelihood aspect. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, this is the chart of the project area and the map. Let us go. The project is targeting a goal in environmental degradation and promoting sustainable use of natural resources in the dry land overcome by the end, it's providing peace for the community and curbing much the tension which has happened for several years between the pastoralists and farmers there in the area. And actually target the objective like 8 SDGs goal. One of them is to alleviate poverty and providing food security, SDG 2, and also in keeping peace building, SDG 16, and conflict resolution. Also, it was targeting climate change, SDG 13, on mitigation and adaptation and resilience. Also, the partnership component has been settled or focused and targeted, even especially with the governmental authorities and the private sector and the community as such. The gender equality has been also addressed, and the inequalities SDG 10. By the end, the project is applying the integrated water resources management system in targeting SDG 6, including community participation, monitoring and tracking the results and water harvesting. Next slide. In discussion and results, there were 3 committees has been formed as the advisory committee and technical committee, and there is a building management forum committee looking after the project and the implementation, scaling up, and even in monitoring the activities running. There is weirs have been those weirs which are servicing in being rehabilitated and constructed has been like to cover the village and adapt this with climate change pattern, as I mentioned, for the farmers and the pastoralists at the same time. Before we found that like 150 farmers could make a livelihood aspect in a very severe situation, but now like 4,000 maybe after the project has been worked in a big land area during according to this Gadem where which is this small dam has been rehabilitated or being constructed. Representatives also from the project area have been chosen to participate in a peace building and agriculture training program, like programs of COT, training of trainers program in Kigali, Rwanda. And they have been also chosen as in a gender balance, 1 female and 1 male. They have exchanging their experiences even with the communities when they return back. Accordingly, there is a water harvesting also protocol was prepared to direct water harvesting in Wadilko area. Next slide, please. Slide, yeah. The outputs and achievements, as I mentioned, the project has been extended in 2 phases. The first phase has been started with this consensus building and with the local community. As I mentioned, they have been making use of this training and like 18% benefit in training from those communities and improved technologies. In addition, there is a decrease also has been noted in the use of firewood and charcoal by the local population, because in the beginning they have been cutting trees and making use of firewood and charcoal. As such, like 35 acres of dry and sandy upland, it mentioned goals in the term of Arabic in Sudan, land have been planted with trees and managed as community forest. And there are 6 community nursery grounds have been also planted, and there is a potential capacity produced like 40,000 seedlings have been planted and produced. The second phase, like targeted an expansion for the project in targeting the integrated water resource management methodology in downstream and upstream of the river or of the wadi itself. The wadi, that means the the area of this water, running, as I mentioned, for 1,000 kilometers. The benefit household target beneficiaries were 80,000. Those are direct beneficiaries, and indirect, like 700,000 people in North Darfur. Another faddans, like I see it from 700 faddans or others, have been with water construction and benefit like 5,650 families. From it, they have been a lot of productivity in this large percentage ground. That's the next slide, please. Another lesson learned that this project is considered like a strategic one with its objective. It's a pioneer one in that diversifying this development product and livelihood aspect, as I mentioned. It was found also that the production has been exceeding for a triple of multi cash crop components like sorghum and millets, and also vegetables. And the community thrive, even they have been installed on the market area. So that means economic even goals have been considered in this project in terms of intensified agriculture and also developing their livestock and forestry ground, and achieving also the social goals in developing these rural areas. Create multi-additional job opportunities even for youth, and it makes such stability for the resident and improving the livelihood that even like 100 or 1,000 plows has been given to the farmers and provide to them, and that much increase their productivity by it. Next slide. We can see from this slide the lessons learned by and telling stories by such of the communities and people who are making use from the project. They planted those cash crops, millet and sorghum, cucumbers, okra, sunflowers, grapefruit, even not just like crops, the vegetables, but even the fruit. And they have, as I mentioned, try to sell it in the market, and several interviews have been addressed by the community. Even the women she has been well involved. They have actually women association group, and they mostly share with their vision and even on the nursery ground, and try even to expand their livelihood and even their income generating for their families. This is the woman, we can see it on the corner here. She mentioned that before she was not able to sit even with the men. That means that even the projects made this construction building, and even to participate and let women to be heard or hear her voice and even her decision in that methodology of the project. Next slide, please. Much of the components of the project, like targeting even the publications and the outreach material. There is such in Arabic and in English releases of fact sheets and media interviews have been, and reports even by such journalists and even by the team of the project. Next slide. In conclusion, the project has helped in reducing tension and avert conflict between communities, and even curbing the tension in this area for long years, and even between two main major groups, which are farmers and pastoralists. Another issue is helping the local population in better management their natural resources. They know how to deal with their natural resources in not cutting the trees, and even to find more options in targeting their livelihood aspects and how they can make use even for the natural resources in better use, like this water resources management. And also they have got them in a partnership and making such peaceful, profitable work and future. Accordingly, as I mentioned, this water harvesting protocol, which was prepared to direct water harvesting in Wadi al, which is really, it seems like it's a community protocol, which is cannot be harmed, like even or being invaded by any certain other institutes or other, because they need or they try to tell that this protocol is abided by the community and no one can make like any invasion for it or something like that. Yeah, another issue like we can find is diversification, natural resources management in livelihood, and climate change adaptation, resilience, and mitigation for this pattern of the climate change, even the environmental governance, peace building, and conflict resolution. Also, strengthening the women roles in local peace building processes over natural resources-based conflicts. By the end, you can say that this project generate or one of the recommendations that the project can be generated for other dams or weirs in another areas in the forest state for stability and peace building processes. And by that, thank you so much, and thanks for the chance and the opportunity. Thanks, Professor Craig.
Okay, so let's have our next speaker. Grace Adina is the 21-22 Chevening Scholar who completed a Master of Science degree in International Development with Conflict and Humanitarian Action at the University of Bath in the United Kingdom. She has a Bachelor's in International Relations from Universitas Katolik Paraguay in Indonesia. I'm sure I mispronounced that. She has a master's degree in disaster management and national security. For the last 6 years, Grace has worked in the Asian Coordinating Center for Humanities Assistance and Disaster Management. And she's also held the position of Preparedness and Response Officer for the Asian Emergency Response and Assessment Team. So, Grace, take it away, please.
Thank you, George. Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. It's been a long day, but I hope that you still have an energy to listen to my presentation. So this unpacking the principle of neutrality within the humanitarian principles, it's actually an excerption of my dissertation titled "To What Extent an Regional Organization Apply Humanitarian Principles, particularly neutrality, in a conflict setting." So why this is important? Actually, because it's coming based on my experience in the past, where it's difficult for us to operationalize neutrality principle, in particularly when we are dealing in a complex situation. So as I relearn again during my master program, then I got some sort of insights, which I want to share with all of us in this conference. So can we move on, Victoria? Slide 2. So this is neutrality. It's I'm sure that everyone knows about this neutrality, a principle with different interpretation, but perhaps I just want to try make a little bit interaction here. If anyone can share or briefly what do they know about neutrality? Perhaps 1 minute you can type in the chat room. how do you interpret neutrality based on your understanding or your experience in the field? Again, there is no wrong or right answer. That's a very good one. Pinot Minon, non-aligned with Andor power block. Okay, you can type your interpretation as I move on to the next slide. Thank you. So this is just methodology that I did to answer my research question. So this is a case study approach to allow me deep dive further in a complex situation. And in this paper, I used a case study of ASEAN's humanitarian assistance in the Myanmar situation due to the coup, which later on I will briefly explain. And I use the secondary data, qualitative data with semi-systematic literature review. So you can see there is this data collection process that I went through for me to be able to go deep further about the discussion, the debate around neutrality, and also to dig information data related to ASEAN's intervention in Myanmar, which is actually quite limited because of the sensitivity of the issues. Next slide, please. So this is a historical perspective, brief overview about two main paradigms that can also explain a little bit why this principle, neutrality principle, becomes debatable. So as we are aware, we understand that the humanitarianism, it started during the Solferino battle back in 1879. So at that time, we all know that Henry Dunant actually applied this neutrality concept, which later on was institutionalized in the conference, in the Genevan Conference. But basically, the neutrality at the time was conceived based on the initiative of Dunant to to help any injured soldiers. So the key word here is any wounded soldiers. And he used this principle basically as a means to gain trust and confidence of all the warring parties. So they can approach, the volunteers can approach all the injured soldiers that became the victim at the time. So as time goes by, so the war becomes more complex, and it is allowing for this concept of what's so-called new humanitarianism, where political atmosphere is kind of like influenced the way humanitarian provide aid. So it was started basically during the post-Cold War. The atmosphere of the war, it becomes more complex in terms of actors involved. There are warring parties, there are also warlords, and the victims here, well, the civilians here is no longer becoming the victims of the war, but they can also be the target of the war. So this is the reason why it becomes more complex in terms of actors involved and the victims itself. And due to this development, then it becomes complicated as well for neutrality principle to be fit in this humanitarian action, or how humanitarian delivers their aid. It can be, because it can be quote unquote manipulated as a political tool that can perhaps prolong or sustain the conflict, that can benefit the belligerent actors, or it can also be used for basically tool to negotiate with the warring parties. So next slide, please. Okay, so this slide and the slide next after this, it's basically summarizing expressions around neutrality principles. So as you can see, there are three big chunks here: moral values, means, and moral values and means. So the first chunk here, the moral values, is basically quite influenced, mainly influenced by deontologists like Immanuel Kant or Dante, who sees neutrality as the values to determine act. So that's the reason why there are some prominent thinkers, leaders, practitioners that subscribes of this moral values, such as at Viliami. He is the a well-known journalist who was there during the Omarska camp in Bosnia. And Fiona Terry, she used to be the director in the ICRC. MSF, Medicine Sans Frontières. So they thought that being neutral means that humanitarians be on the side of the criminal by silent in front of the crime. So in a way that they did not agree on the principle of neutrality. Meanwhile, on the other hand, in the second box, meaning that neutrality here is seen as a way to achieve bigger goal, which is humanity. So this is where what we know, the definition of the principle neutrality, particularly the principle that is guiding the work of Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, saying that not taking sides in order to gain trust of the warring party. So the end goal is not neutrality, but rather humanity. So some of the prominent thinkers like Stuart and Gordon and Antonio Donini have some points, their thoughts, their thinking, their points about neutrality, that it should not be romanticized as a higher moral value, but more on how it can help for a bigger goal. Meanwhile, in the third box, moral values and means, well, basically it gives some sort of a leeway for humanitarians to interpret neutrality based on our mandate, based on our responsibilities and capabilities. So this is very interesting points coming from Hugo Slim, which basically allow some sort of different interpretations, different variations of neutrality, such as legally, morally, operationally. So what does that mean? So for example, like legally, it's like military medicine. So it's not necessarily politically neutral, but they can also still be considered humanitarian, like the military medicine. Or morally meaning that, for example, his example actually is when a Syrian worker did not want to help those who bombarded her community, but they can still be considered humanitarian. Or the other version of humanitarianism is operationally. This is where the example of the work of Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, where they use neutrality as a means to be able to help people. Next slide, please. Okay, this is also a continuation. So I will no longer explain on this. Next, please. Okay, now we go to the case study, an overview of case study, ASEAN humanitarian assistance due to Myanmar coup. Just an overview for ASEAN. It's basically built upon promoting regional peace and stability post-Cold War. So it is built and it is owned by 10 ASEAN member states. ASEAN is Association Southeast Asian Nation. So it's 10 countries located in the Southeast Asian region. They are Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, PDR, Thailand, the Philippines, Malaysia, Myanmar, Singapore, and Vietnam. So this is how they built the organization. It's like a geopolitical organization aiming to build peace and stability. But at the same time, as you can see in the third point, Southeast Asia is also the most disaster prone in the world. So based on MDOT, we have over 25,000 disaster events, such as Indian Ocean tsunami. This is the biggest, basically the biggest natural hazard disaster in the region that actually became impetus of us in the region to build AHA Center and the legally binding of ASEAN Agreement on Disaster Management and Emergency Response. Also Typhoon Haiyan and also Cyclone Nargis in Myanmar back in 2008. So due to this fact, that's the reason why the 10 member state agreed, okay, let's have an ATMER. And it is recognized as the first legally binding in disaster management. And throughout years, they have built tools and mechanism to provide, basically to facilitate cooperation among the member states, including beyond member states, such as with the UN agencies, Red Cross, and also countries outside of ASEAN. And they have responded to over 30 natural disaster response in the region. So basically, that's the work of ASEAN that are focusing on disaster management. That are focusing on the natural hazard context until there are several complex emergencies or a human-induced disaster that push ASEAN to respond to the humanitarian needs. So one of them is due to this ongoing coup of Myanmar. As we know that last 2020 on the 1st February, in the middle of COVID-19 outbreaks, Myanmar military, they took over the legitimate government. I was there on the first day of the coup. It was quite terrifying. And after that, the situation is not really improving very well. In fact, there are a lot of actors against this military junta government. There are this civil disobedience movement, people or civilians, or government officials that are against the military junta. They stop working. They join the civil disobedience movement, also including those who are working in the service and private sector. And all that, they join the civil disobedience movement. And also they set up this force, People's Defense Force, basically to fight against the military, which is part of this SAC, State Administration Council. So as a result, a lot of casualties, displaced people due to the conflict and insecurity. Healthcare system also collapsed, while there is this raging needs for COVID treatment, also COVID vaccine. So that's the reason why, I need to go back again on the left side, on the bottom left side. You can see that the 5-point consensus. This is the mandate given to the AHA Center, the ASEAN Coordinating Center, to provide humanitarian needs to Myanmar. So the 5-point consensus, it was all agreed by the 10 member states, including Myanmar, to provide humanitarian needs to Myanmar. Why there is this consensus? Because this is not a nature of AHA Center or of ASEAN to respond in a complex emergency. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, so there's this raging humanitarian needs due to existing poor conditions. So even before the coup, the situation in Myanmar it's already concerning enough, and COVID-19 outbreak, and then there is the CDM and political turmoil. However, the thing is that the humanitarian access is shut down by the de facto junta government. In fact, when I was there on the first day, almost 5 days basically, the humanitarian chartered relief managed by WFP, it was also shut down. It got affected. It did not basically we cannot travel outside of Myanmar. So next slide, please. So then again, this situation gave some sort of a reflection to us, a humanitarian, to people in the field. So should we work with the belligerent government so that we can save more lives, people who is in need, or should we still adhere to the principle of neutrality and allow people's dying? And then the second point that is really quite interesting, regional intergovernmental organization is built by the member state. So should we adhere to principle of neutrality in carrying out our mandate, their mandate in a conflict setting, or should we not? If we are not applying to this principle, are we still considered as a humanitarian? And what will be the complications, the consequences? And the last reflection is, if a regional intergovernmental organization cannot apply neutrality either as a moral value or as a mean, then what will be the possible added value to address humanitarian needs in a conflict setting? Continue, please. So one of the findings in this paper, basically that ASEAN and perhaps also other humanitarian actors or regional organizations may not be able to apply a strict neutrality principle. And therefore, as you can see in your screen, this chart may be one of the illustration to illustrate basically the extent of how a regional organization or a humanitarian actor in applying neutrality principle. So on the left side, it is easy basically to subscribe and to operationalize neutrality principle if it's in the context of pure natural hazard related disaster settings. So a regional organization, even though they are built, they are managed, and they are reporting directly to the member state, they can apply this and focus on the life-saving and life-sustaining of humanitarian operations. But once conflict settings is involved, even though it's in the context, even though there is this natural hazard-related disaster, but when there is a conflict situations there, then these neutrality principles will be coexistence with the focus of maintaining peace and security. Next slide, please. So the conclusion, I draw 3 conclusions here. The first one is embrace the fact that not all humanitarians fit in a strict interpretation of neutrality. So I think this is the very important message that I wish to convey, because one of my reflections back then when I was still as a practitioner, we oftentimes basically argue and hindering our operations, operationalizing our neutrality principle into a concrete program, because we are stuck with this label, whether are we neutral or not. So the first point, meaning that we can embrace all these versions of humanitarianism, and but it doesn't mean that we cannot work one to another. And then the second one is ASEAN's case or other regional organizations may potentially be further research to enrich the debate. So neutrality principle on our or based on the mandate of one organization, according to what Hugo Slim suggested in his book. So in the second point, this is actually I encourage further study those who are working in an academics to further study about the concept of neutrality, also humanitarian regional organization. And the last one, it's to reflect back for us to juxtapose the principle of neutrality against the principle of humanity, where we are basically the reason for being of humanitarians to save life. Next, please. So full paper can be found here, or I think you can also find it in the website or request the organizer to send it. I think that's all my presentation. Over to the moderator, please.
Okay. Thank you for your talk. It's getting close to our finishing time. It's 4:51. So I think what we'll do is we'll stop here. I want to thank our speakers for all their talks. We covered a wide range of topics today. I think I hope that you found many useful nuggets and ideas. And thank you for attending. Goodbye.